Alright, little people, what we're going to do today is we are going to start building something from scratch. Right here you see we've got a resume and we're going to kind of build one for you. Don't feel like you can't go off the wall here a little bit. You don't have to match mine perfectly. This is just my general setup, my colors. If you want to play around with this, feel free to add different things. I just kind of want you to have a template for this in the future because we're all going to need resumes, right? Everybody's looking for a job at some point. So we're going to kind of design this. As you see, it's filled with a lot of lorem ipsum text, but the basic design is there for everything. So all you have to do is kind of take this, fill in the correct information, and go from there. So we're going to build this from scratch. You do notice up there is a picture of me. You're going to need a picture of yourself for this in order to make this work right. So let's dip into this. First, I'm going to need you to hit File, New, Document. And because this is a resume, this is something that's going to be printed straight out of the printer. We want to keep it a standard size, so I'm going to click Print and stay on Letter. I do want you to change your units to inches, just so you understand that a little better. And change this to your name dash resume. Alright, hit Create when you've got that. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. You need 3 columns here too, because this is a 3-column setup. So standard piece of paper, portrait orientation, and then 3 columns, and hit Create. So this is our basic document setup. Before we really begin, I do want to talk about text wrapping. So I'm going to grab a ellipse frame tool. So if you hold on your frame tools, you can go to the ellipse frame tool. That's your circular frame tool. And I'm going to create a circle here. I'm going to hold shift as I do. I want it to fill a little bit of one of these columns, not the whole thing. And I'm going to place my picture into this. Now you can go to File, Place, or the shortcut is Command or Control D. And I'm going to find that picture of myself here and hit Open. Now you'll notice it opens in very large, that image. One of my favorite shortcuts for InDesign, it's probably the longest shortcut ever, is holding Shift, Option or Alt, Command or Control, all 3 of those together, and then tapping E, and that'll resize it to frame. So that's a pretty cool little thing. I'm also going to create another rectangular frame right here on top of it, and I'm going to fill this with just some random text. So I'm going to go to, I need to turn it into a text frame. Click on it with your type tool, and then go to Type, Fill with placeholder text, and you'll see the text goes right over top of my picture. And that's fine for some things. For some things, that's not what I want. I want it to kind of mesh around this curve. So if I select both of these, so I'm going to grip my black arrow, click, hold, and drag over top of these, and then go to text wrap down here. I have a couple of options for text wrap. One's kind of blocky, so it creates a straight line. One will actually wrap it around that circle. One will put it above or below, and in this case the frame isn't big enough to show that. But just so you can see how that text will kind of wrap a little bit to create more of an interesting kind of look. And there's always things you can kind of play with here and make things a little different if you need to. So that's just what text wrap is. Feel free to play with that a little bit. Alright, I'm going to delete out this text, and I'm going to leave my picture there for the time being. So we need to make the basic format of this, and a lot of this is just basic shapes. So you've got your rectangle tool here, and you've got your pen tool that you can play with as well. So I want to make the format here. So I'm going to start up at the top left and drag a frame all the way around like this to that column divider. Actually, I'm going to stop it on this one, like that. I'm going to choose a color. You can pick whatever colors you want to use for this. Don't feel like you're stuck using my colors. When you place this, you're going to notice that it goes above your image. Remember, the last thing you placed always goes on top. So I'm going to grab that and hit Object, Arrange, send it back, and that'll place it back there. Now, we've got these margin lines and these different lines around here, but we're not going to use them for a whole lot. If you want to work by using the preview method, just hit W and you can kind of see that. And you might have to align things a little differently here just to make sure it fits right than what you would see in this view. So kind of bounce back and forth so you know what's going on. Next, I'm going to get my pen tool and I'm going to create this little divider right here, this green divider. You could do this by creating a rectangle and then creating this little dash above it. Nobody really know the difference, but I'm going to do something a little different. So I'm going to start right here on this edge, click once, that'll give you your first anchor point, and I'm going to hold shift all the way to this column line, like that. And if you hold shift, it gives you a straight line. Next, I'm going to kind of jank it up a little bit, and then I'm going to hold shift again all the way to that black line, and I'm just going to keep holding shift all the way through this. Now, if you want this to be a little bit smaller or a little larger, that's perfectly fine. Feel free to play with that. Make sure you close the shape by clicking back on the original spot. And then I'm going to go to my color panel, and I'm going to choose a color that I want this to be. You can kind of click in here. You can use these sliders to find the color you want. So I'm sticking to my little Slytherin color tone here. Alright, I'm going to create another rectangle right up here. Just kind of a little color break. And I want it to be the same color, and if you notice right here in your toolbar, you'll have the last color that you kind of used. So you can click right there and get that color immediately. If not, you can use your eyedropper tool and click on that green in order to get that. Alright, now the next thing we want to look at, since we're doing frames and shapes and colors, are these little gradients and then these little skill sliders. Alright, so we're going to make these little rectangles here that you see and kind of make a template for these slider bars so we can use them a little later. So I'm going to go to my document here and I'm going to get my rectangle tool, and I'm going to use the column line, the margin line here as kind of a measure. Try to keep this centered. Now on the left hand side, just underneath the toolbar, you'll see that you also have an option to apply a gradient. I'm going to click on that and that'll give me my white to black base gradient, and instead of using that, I'm going to use my gradient tool here. Now if I click on this anywhere and kind of drag, it'll move that gradient to match what I'm doing. I'm going to kind of start way over here on the side, holding shift and kind of go across just to give a light fade, maybe a little more than that on the white. There we go. And I kind of like that. I think that fits pretty well. I'm going to duplicate that down because I know I need 2 of those. There we go. Alright, so the slider bars that we have, these little skills, you'll notice that there are two rectangles here. You've got the white rectangle underneath and a green rectangle above it, so there's 2 there. And you just kind of drag it to match what you're looking for there. So I'm just going to make one so that I have it. So I'm going to make one thin little rectangle like that, and I'm going to color it white. And feel free to zoom in on this because this is a little bit closer, a little bit finer action. And I'm going to copy that, Command C or Control C, and then Command V or Control V. And right here I'm going to add another rectangle above it. I'm going to make sure it's that same green color I was using before. And now that I've got this, I can drag this back and forth, and I've got my little slider bar action. Alright, so from this point, we've got all of our main elements in this document that we need. Next is really just adding text and playing around with the type. I feel like text frames are not as complicated, so I'm going to kind of give you the bare bones of this, and I'll kind of let you go crazy on it how you want. Don't feel like you have to actually type out a whole bunch of stuff here. Like you see here, all of my stuff is basically that lorem ipsum placeholder text. So feel free to kind of tinker around with that a little bit. So let's start at the top and kind of work our way down. At the beginning, you'll need your name. So I'm going to get my type tool. And because we have all of these frames already on this document, you got to be a little careful. If I hover over that frame, you'll notice that that little circle shows up instead of a square. That circle means it's going to turn whatever you're looking at or whatever you're hovering over into a text frame. So be careful not to click right on that shape because you'll end up typing right into that frame. And that's not what I'm looking for. I want to type above it. So make sure you see that square when you click, hold, and drag, and type your name in. Now, you can do this in a bunch of different ways. A lot of people like to, when they're making text frames, just come over here to the right, type it out here, and then move it on top of things. It's kind of whatever works for you. Remember, you can resize your frames after you're done. You don't have to leave it that same size. Alright, the font I'm using here is called Futura, F-U-T-U-R-A. I'm going to use the extra bold condensed for my name here, and I'm going to blow that up pretty large. I mean, it's a resume about you. It should kind of pop, right? Maybe I don't like it in this uppercase and lowercase format. If I highlight it right here, I see 2 capital T's. I can make it capitalized like that. I think that looks a little better. And if this frame is too big, you can hover at the corner of the frame and just double click, and that'll shrink that frame up so it's not in your way. Okay, I'm going to use my type tool again, click, hold, and drag. And this time I'm going to put my job title in there, graphic designer. Probably should put teacher, but you know how that goes. I'm going to change this to Futura as well. And this time I'm going to use just Futura medium. And I'm going to blow that up a little bit. I don't want it to be bigger than my name, but I want it kind of large. And I want it to be lined up with the left side of my name. Notice these little smart guides. That'll place it where I want it to be. Maybe a little bigger than that. Yeah, that looks good. And feel free to put your own thing in here if you want to put, video game superstar, whatever knocks your socks off. I'll move everything up a little bit to give me a little more room. Alright. Now, instead of constantly creating new text frames and retyping things, one thing I like to do is just kind of take what I already have and duplicate. So I'm going to copy this graphic designer and place it right here. I'm going to retype profile into that. And you see that it already comes in that font and that size, which is good. I'm going to change the color to white, and I'm going to make it all caps right here. And kind of place that in the right spot. Shrink that frame down. Alright, so placing profile there. I'm going to get my line tool next, which is right here next to my type tool. And I'm just going to make a little what they call keyframe line, just a little thin line. Lines have to use color in the stroke since it's only a single stroke. It doesn't have a fill necessarily. So make sure you're using your stroke line. And that gives me my basic look here. Now again, if you hit W on your keyboard, you'll see it start to look a little bit cleaner here. So use that W when you need to. Alright, next I'm going to create a type frame. And again, be careful not to accidentally click when you see this circle pop up. You want that square. So to do this, I'm going to start over here and just kind of drag underneath to make a text frame. And then I will fill it with placeholder text. So type, fill with placeholder text. And from there, I'll move it where I need it to be. So right there. I'm going to highlight that, and I'm going to change the font. We're sticking with Futura. I'm going to keep it on medium here. I want the font to be about a 10/15, maybe a little bigger than that, 10/20, double spaced, just because I like a little extra space. And I'm going to hit fill with placeholder text again, just to make sure it fills that area. I'll also change that font to white right here. Alright, so we're starting to get a cleaner look here. If you need to move that down a little bit to make sure it's kind of centered in that green box, that's fine. You don't have to have the 4 lines like I do. You can have a little more, a little less. Just be careful that you don't have a red plus symbol in the corner. If you see that, just kind of start deleting some words until that red plus symbol disappears. Alright, so right here where it says profile, I've already got kind of a setup for a subheader. So I'm going to copy that and paste it. Remember, it's white, that's why you can't see it here. And I'm going to place that right here on this. And I'm going to rename this. What did I call this? My contact. Yeah, contact and skills. So I'm going to type in contact. I'm going to color that black. And I'm going to change that font from medium to condensed extra bold. And if it disappears like you just saw, it's just because the frame's too small. So just be careful with that. I'm going to center that right there. Okay. I'll duplicate that down and I'll call that skills. And again, we're going to need to realign that. You can use your alignment tools if you have more than one thing selected. Up here, you should see some alignment options. If you don't, you've always got align as a panel right here. So feel free to use that. Now, the rest of this comes down to just simple text, right? So we need to type in some different things. I'm going to kind of whip through that, and you can kind of play around with that as need be. So pause, feel free to type as quick as you want to here. Okay, so I've got it typed out here, but you'll notice that they're a little tight on each other, and one little trick to fix that is to kind of play around with your leading. So I'm going to highlight phone here, and I'm going to push the leading up on this a little bit. I'm going to go to 12/20. I'm going to do the same thing with email and website, and you'll see that if you do that on that one word, it'll kind of separate itself from the rest. I'm going to change my color to white, and I'm going to move that into place right here underneath contact, and use your smart guides that are popping up here. Alright, and I think that looks pretty good. Alright, so we've made a template for the slider bars. We just need to put the information above there. Feel free to kind of put your own take on this. I'm just going to go from a graphic side of life. I'm going to make sure that my font is the same as this address up here, and I'll use my white, my eyedropper tool to kind of select that as needed. If I get my type tool and I highlight the word Photoshop, I will see my paragraph guides over here, and I want to make sure it's centered. And that's my basic look right there. Now if you need to, you can always lock things. This gray bar is going to get in the way as you try to duplicate this down. So I'll go up here to, is it edit, I believe. Nope, line 2, object lock, that's what it is. Alright, so I've locked that background gray, it won't move. I'm going to select these two, I'm going to hold option, and I'm going to drag it down. Now you see those smart guides, those green little dashes showing me what's where and how much space we have between. Use those so that you keep it equal with each other. I'll rename this, and again, if you want to do, you know, video games, your different levels of things, that's fine too. A little better at Photoshop. Duplicate down, and I'm just going to keep going until I kind of hit the bottom of this. And I'm just going to make sure I move the slider a little bit each time, because that's what's going to make it look a little bit more real. I see I've probably got two more. I can duplicate two at the same time if I want to. And if you're curious as to what these other programs are, this is, if you were to move further into my class, these are the different programs I do teach at the school. Alright, so those are my slider bars. Alright, at this point, I'm going to leave it up to you to fill in the experience, because that's kind of up to you and how you want to do things anyway. Right here, you can see if I hit W, I've got these in different text bars, different text frames, so that you can kind of create your different looks. I want you to keep everything in the Futura font and kind of play around with that. If you notice right here, I've kind of messed up. Some of these are not in Futura. I didn't change them. But just be careful to keep everything consistent on one font. Now, if you want to, you can certainly take this and make this your actual resume. Don't feel like you can't do that, but it's up to you for how it looks and how it feels. When you're done, if you want to save this for something you can send to employers, go up to the top and hit File, Export, And we don't want to save it as a JPEG or an InDesign file because that's one, doesn't look professional, and they can't open an InDesign file. So put it on Adobe PDF print, call it your name dash resume, and save that to your computer so that you can use that in the future when you're applying for different jobs. You can always put things that you're involved in school there. If you're part of clubs, if you're part of sports or athletics, you can put that in there. Anything that makes you look good, basically, you can put in there. Google online what resume information is needed, see what you can put into that spot, and make this your own. It doesn't have to be. You can stick in that lorem ipsum if you want to. I'm not going to argue with that either. So when you've got the Adobe PDF, hit save, and right here just leave everything the same and hit export, and that way you've got your own resume. If you have any questions, concerns about this, feel free to reach out. If you take a screenshot right here, I'd kind of prefer if you hit W first so I can see the actual version in preview mode. If not, that's fine too. But take your screenshot here and go turn that into lesson 1 in week 6, I believe we're in now. So thank you so much. Y'all have a good day.